All right, let's get into it. Today, we are digging into one of the most famous and, frankly, one of the most chilling experiments in the history of psychology. It's a study that, for decades, seemed to give us a really terrifying answer to a very, very old question.
And that question is this: can a situation, just the circumstances you're in, really turn good people evil? I mean, think about it. Is your character this fixed, solid thing, or can the right environment, the right set of rules, completely transform any one of us? That's exactly what psychologist Philip Zimbardo wanted to find out back in 1971. So, picture the scene. We're in the basement of Stanford University's psychology department. A bunch of healthy, totally normal male college students were paid to live in a fake prison for 2 weeks. The whole point was to see what would happen when they were randomly assigned to be either a prisoner or a guard. Simple as that. Now, what Zimbardo found, or let's say what he claimed he found, gave us this really powerful theory he called the Lucifer effect. The core idea is that the line between good and evil, it's not a wall. It's more like a line in the sand. And with the right pressures, any one of us could be pushed across it. It's a simple and honestly, a pretty terrifying explanation for some of the worst moments in human history. This really gets to the heart of it all. Are prisons violent places because they're full of violent people, the bad apples? Or is there something about the prison environment itself, the bad barrel, that just corrupts anyone you put inside it? Zimbardo thought he could prove it was all about the barrel by making sure he only picked psychologically stable, good apples for his study. So the experiment was supposed to last for 2 full weeks, 14 days. It didn't even make it to day 7. Things got so out of hand, so psychologically damaging that they had to pull the plug after only 6 days. So how did it all go so wrong, so incredibly fast?
The downward spiral was just stunningly quick. Day 1, it's all a bit awkward, everyone's just role-playing. But by day 2, the prisoners rebel, and the guards hit back, hard. Day 3, a prisoner has a complete emotional breakdown. And by day 5, the guards have descended into these really creative, sadistic forms of humiliation. It was a pressure cooker.
The prisoners were deliberately and systematically stripped of who they were. This was not an accident. It was a process called de-individuation. They were stripped naked, sprayed with a fake delousing agent, forced to wear these shapeless smocks and stocking caps, and from then on, they were only called by their number. Their names, their entire identities, just gone. Now, on the flip side, while the prisoners were losing their identity, the guards were being given a powerful new one. They got these khaki uniforms, billy clubs, and maybe most important of all, mirrored sunglasses. Those glasses were absolutely key. They prevented any eye contact, making the guards feel anonymous, powerful, and totally unaccountable. And here's the thing. The guards didn't just come up with this stuff on their own. The researchers set the stage from the very beginning. This is a direct quote from Zimbardo himself, briefing the guards. He is explicitly telling them that their job is to make the prisoners feel powerless and to strip them of their individuality. This is a really crucial piece of the puzzle. So for almost 50 years, that was the story. A powerful, simple, and deeply disturbing tale about the evil that lurks inside all of us, just waiting for the right situation to come out. But what if that story, the one we've all heard in textbooks and documentaries, what if it isn't the whole truth? See, in the late 2010s, researchers finally got access to Zimbardo's archives, which had been hidden away for decades. Hours and hours of audio and video recordings that nobody had ever seen. And what they found? Well, it completely changes everything we thought we knew about this famous experiment. This right here is a bombshell. The recordings showed that the researchers were not passive observers. Here, Zimbardo's assistant, who is acting as the warden, is literally coaching a guard who isn't being mean enough. He's telling him he has to be a tough guard or the experiment won't work. That's not a spontaneous transformation. That's just following orders. And what about the most infamous guard? The guy they nicknamed John Wayne because he was so sadistic. He admitted later that it was all an act. He was consciously modeling his behavior on a character from the movie Cool Hand Luke. He didn't become a monster. He was just trying to be a really good actor, to give the researchers the dramatic results he thought they wanted. Even the most iconic moment of prisoner suffering, the emotional breakdown of prisoner 8612, wasn't what it appeared to be. The prisoner, Douglas Corpy, later confessed he faked the whole thing. He wanted to get out so he could study for his exams, but they wouldn't let him quit. So he figured the only way out was to act crazy. The key evidence was actually a performance. Okay, so if the Stanford Prison Experiment was this flawed, is there another explanation? Well, yes. In 2001, a couple of psychologists, Alex Haslam and Stephen Reacher, ran what's known as the BBC Prison Study, and it offers a very different take on things.
And what happened in the BBC study where the researchers didn't push the guards to be abusive? The results were the complete opposite of Stanford. The guards were super hesitant, they never really formed a team, and the prisoners, they bonded together, they resisted the guards, and eventually they basically overthrew the whole system.
This points to a different idea called social identity theory. It basically says that we don't just passively absorb our roles. Our behavior depends on which group we choose to identify with. Tyranny doesn't just happen because of the situation. It happens when people actively identify with a leader who convinces them that being cruel is necessary for some kind of greater good. And in the Stanford experiment, that leader was Zimbardo himself. So, with all these massive flaws, you might be wondering, why on earth do we even still talk about the Stanford Prison Experiment? Well, it turns out its real legacy isn't what Zimbardo said it was. The real lessons are actually about ethics and research and the incredible power of a good story. And let's be crystal clear here. Even if some of the behavior was faked, the suffering it caused was absolutely real. 5 of the student prisoners had to be released early because they were experiencing genuine psychological distress. We're talking uncontrollable crying, rage, and acute anxiety. That number alone tells you about the profound ethical failures going on here.
And this is exactly why this experiment could never, ever happen today. It broke pretty much every ethical rule in the book. The participants didn't know what they were getting into, they weren't really allowed to leave, and Zimbardo himself was playing 2 roles at once, lead researcher and prison superintendent. That's a massive conflict of interest that just destroys any claim to objectivity.
So we'll end with this question. The fact that this flawed experiment is still so famous suggests that maybe the most dangerous thing isn't a bad barrel after all. Maybe it's a simple, dramatic, and seductive story about evil that we all just really want to believe. The true lesson of Stanford might not be about our capacity for evil, but about our responsibility to question powerful stories, especially when they come dressed up as science.